Hello, friends and family again. This is Sister Martina from the Abbey of St. Walburga in Germany for the fourth meeting of our series on freedom and faith. On our last meeting, we spoke about this good measure of holiness. A good measure that is, of course, free. It has a lot to do with our creativity, with our abilities, also with the context in which we find ourselves. For someone who has problems with alcohol, for example, it's perhaps better not to drink at all. Other people can drink 1 or 2 glasses of wine and nothing happens. But this good measure should never come into dialogue with what is really in itself evil, bad, sinful. And we need also to be able to distinguish that in life. That is exactly the point that we are going to talk about today. Something that Saint Benedict calls discretio. We could translate that with wisdom, intuition, good sense, criterion, I think you say in English. So this ability, this capacity of distinguishing things, of discerning one thing from the other. Of course, this is not something that only Saint Benedict speaks about. It is there in the Christian theology, and other saints talk a lot about this very important aspect of our spiritual life. Most of all, perhaps, great Saint Ignatius of Loyola, in his spiritual exercises, he tends to emphasize a lot this point of being able to distinguish, being able to discern one thing from another in order to find then what is exactly what God wants from us, what is exactly God's voice, and other things. One of the first things that we have to remember when we talk about this matter is that the only person who can find in each situation of life the good measure of holiness for ourselves are we ourselves. Nobody can tell us what is it that God wants for us. Nobody can tell me what is the vocation of my life. Nobody can actually tell me what is that I should do in this situation. Freedom is something sacred in a sense, because freedom is one of these things that make us the image of God. God created us, we believe, on his image. And one of the things that this means is that we are free. Of course, the circumstances of life determine a lot of what we can do or cannot do. But inside these circumstances, we still always keep this freedom. I can do that, or I can do something else. And this is one of the most sacred things of human being. Even, for example, in a monastery, the abbot or the abbess, they can never tell a candidate if she really has the vocation or not. This is a process that we ourselves have to discover. In prayer, in talk, we can of course talk and ask for advice and everything, and the abbot and abbess should be open for this, to help, to make observations, to give advice. But only in the innermost of my heart and of my soul and my conscience can I really freely listen to the voice of God. When we go to confession, for example, we Catholics, it can never be that the priest is the one who tells me my sins. I am the one who have to accuse myself of my own sins. The priest cannot go to my heart, conscience, into my soul and tell me himself what he thinks is a sin or not. Of course, he can help, he can give advice and so on, but the first movement of telling my sins must be mine. And Pope Francis says, he's always very practical, and he says that our heart has to have a door, and we can open this door for people if we want it. This door should have a key, and the only copy of this key, Pope Francis says, we should give to God. Only God can have a copy of the key of my heart and of my soul, and myself, of course. All the others can come and go, but if I wish, if I allow it, even when we are allowed to go and to see into the hearts and souls of other people, because they allow us to do that, we should be utterly respectful and careful, because this is great mystery, the mystery of a soul of a human being, which is the image of God himself. So it is important for us to remember always that we should never allow, and also never seek, because we do that sometimes out of laziness, that the others take the decisions that we ourselves have to take. This is a matter of responsibility, and this is a matter of our own human rights. The decisions for my own life, be they great decisions or little decisions, it is myself, it is I myself who have to take them. But then we come, of course, to another problem that we already spoke in our first meeting. Okay, I am free, I have to take my own decisions, and nobody has the right to tell me this is what God wants for you, or this is exactly what you should do or not. But this is not enough. The fact of being free doesn't make me automatically good. I can freely do many bad things. I can freely kill somebody or steal something and do even worse things. What is it then that makes this good measure really good? How do I find out what is really the good thing that I should do? St. Paul says to us in his famous word, we should examine all things. That means not be afraid. As grown up and mature people, we should really see all things, not be afraid of things, not be full of scruples or something like that. But we should, he says, after we examine all things, then be able to distinguish which one of them is really good for us and which one is not good for us. Actually, the parameter here is God himself who speaks in our conscience. And God means, of course, everything that is right, everything that is good, everything that is loving, everything that is merciful, everything that is full of integrity, moral integrity. These things are the attributes of God, and these things show us which is his wish for each situation in our lives. Our conscience, nevertheless, where we listen to this voice of God, has also to be somehow fit to be able to listen. We nowadays speak so much, and rightly so, I think, about being physically fit. We have to exercise, we have to eat healthily, we have to read good things about health and a healthy life. This is all very good. But we should try to apply these things also to our soul and to our spiritual life. Our conscience needs somehow also, as our bodies, to be trained. And how can we do that? In the same way, only spiritually. We should also read good things. We should also search for knowledge when we have a problem. We also should also look for solid, really good and wise things, the same way we do also for healthy things, the health of the body. We should also listen to advice, seek advice. That doesn't mean that we have to follow it or all of it, but be able to listen, be able to ask for help, also naturally from people who in whom we trust, who are for us somehow examples of holiness, of this following the will of God. We should also accept, and that is so difficult for us sometimes, correction. Sometimes even a person whom we don't like very much says something that actually is right and actually should help us if we allow it. So all of these things are important for us to be able to really open our conscience to listen to the voice of God. St. Catherine of Siena says that we should know ourselves, know what are our tendencies, know where we have talents, where we have faults, know how we react to things. The experience of spiritual life, as also as physical life, gives us this knowledge. I know what my problems are, I know what I can do good, and I am, she says, then I must be sincere with myself, really sincere, not try to hide myself from myself, but really look at myself in the eyes and acknowledge this is my problem, this is my fault, this is what I do good, and this is then where I need advice, or this is where I can trust myself more. All of this helps us to recognize the will of God speaking through our conscience. This discernment of the spirits, as say St. Ignatius of Loyola, is also something very practical, actually. We say that good intentions are not enough. We have in my country this saying that hell is full of good intentions. It's a bit too strong, but it is very useful when we apply it to ourselves. I mean, sometimes we give this excuse, oh, I have good intentions. It didn't work out, but my intention was good. No, this is not enough. I can have a wonderful intention of traveling around the world, but if I don't go and get a plane and pay for my ticket and organize my trip, I'm never going to do it. I mean, the good intention is essential, but also essential are the good means, as Saint Jose Maria Escrivá says, for example. So really bringing all these things, this discernment, to our practical lives. We may have, for example, the intention of helping all the poor in the world and talking about peace in the world and justice, which is very nice. But what do we do? The commandment, the very wise Christian commandment is to love your neighbor. Your neighbor is the one that you can love. All the others who are far away at this moment, probably you cannot do anything for them. And again, Pope Francis speaks about this need not only to give the beggar that we meet at the street a little coin, but really to look him into his eyes, to treat him as a human being who has the same worth as I have, although the circumstances are so different. And really try to do the best in all we can do. We want, for example, to help someone. Yeah, but how to help? When to help? What is exactly that the person needs? So many times we want much more to have a good feeling that we helped, but not actually to help the person. Or when and how, and if to speak something. It's also important. We have to speak something, but we have to know when, how, what is the best time. Should we speak now or not? Or should we say no to something? So many tragic circumstances in our lives, and perhaps even in history, could have been avoided if we had said simply at the beginning, no, I am not, I don't agree with that. I'm not going to do that. Also recognizing priorities. St. Augustine says that morality is exactly this, to recognize which of the values that we have in front of us are the most important values. What is in this case most important, more important? What are really the causes of this problem? We are sometimes in a turmoil, don't know how to see things properly. Let's try to make this discernment to see where is really the problem. And sometimes things get so much easier to solve when we try that. Even big things, even great political and social problems. So many times we see that there is an enormous confusion about these things. People do not know what they're talking about, or we keep repeating things without really knowing them, or we have no idea anymore what is really the important thing and what is not the important thing. This is a matter, for example, about abortion and all this kind of things. I mean, we sometimes lose the perspective of what is actually important or not. But of course, we have no faith. If we believe not anymore, if we don't believe anymore in God, in good, in justice, then these things get so confused that in the end, it's not anymore possible to make this discernment. Also, another thing is let time solve many problems, mostly problems, personal problems we have in the family, in with our friends. So many times silence and patience and time can solve these things instead of talking too much or trying to solve them. Also with ourselves, we must give ourselves also time. We could also speak more deeply and say that we should avoid, or this discernment helps us to avoid giving way to pressure, propaganda, appearances. I live here in Germany, and of course their Nazi past is a trauma for them until today. And we know that actually the very convinced Nazis were not many, but why did so many people just go along? This is very important also for our general history, never to give way, to think with our own minds, always to follow my own conscience in big things, in little things, to be really free and sincere before God with my own conscience, know my own thoughts, cut bad tendencies that I see in myself, really try to see what God is asking for me in every circumstances, mostly in difficult circumstances. God is always there. There is always a plan. So we should try to discern what is God now telling me or not. Of course, this discretio has another meaning connected to this that we have been talking about, which is simply being discreet. The word comes from that, of course. And that also means more or less the same thing, knowing that I should not put myself in the first place, my opinions, my pride, my vanity, but the first place should always be given to God, which means to justice, to truth, to goodness, to love, and so on. The discreet person is exactly the person that is very normal, very healthy, sometimes has positions of responsibility, and so he has to be the leader in these moments, but he always knows that he is not the center of the world, that he is not the center of things. He knows to be in the background. He knows, for example, to have humor, good humor. Good humor is a very high sign, says St. Thomas More, for example, of holiness. Being able to laugh of yourself, of things that seem so enormous. Flexibility, goodwill, not being a difficult, susceptible person. Everything for me is so difficult. People have to think 2 times before they talk to me. Always this kind of not putting myself in the center of things. Why? Because I know that the center of things, God should be there, and not I with my own opinions, although I can be there with God too. But always to recognize that I come after God. Of course, paradoxically, the person who is discreet, he is actually much more respected generally than the proud person. The proud person wants to be respected. He wants to be the center of things. And in the end, he's always laughed at a little bit. Perhaps not on his face, but on his back. People say, oh my, this pride person, he thinks he is what he's actually not. And the discreet person, the person that acts according to his conscience, is generally much more respected, although he doesn't look for that, he doesn't want it. But this is a paradox, and it happens, so we know that. We have here Our Lady in this beautiful old tapestry, and who better can be for us a model of this discretion, this being discreet. A strong woman, certainly, a woman full of personality, a woman able to be there at the cross and hold her son in her arms, but a woman that is always somehow in the background because she knows that she is not the center, he is the center, God is the center. And she can only do that because she knows she is loved, because she knows that her life has a sense, that she is the maiden of the Lord. And let's ask her for her blessing, that we too in our lives may understand the importance of being able to discern in everything the will of God, to follow it, and to follow it with humility and with faith. God bless us all, everything, all the best for you all until our next meeting. God bless you.